Good morning, my name is Xavier from Transformers. I'll be providing you the webinar Ready to Rent in today's date. First of all, let me talk before we can get on the details about Ready to Rent. I will talk about Transformers a little bit. Uh, Transformers is a non-profit organization founded in 1974, and it is a United Way service provider, as well as a HUD-approved multi-state housing counseling and education organization. Part of our services include credit and budget counseling, financial education, student loan counseling, the AIM program, the C2 SAFE program, housing counseling, debt management, and bankruptcy counseling. So you can see Transformance has different kinds of partnerships with nonprofits, for-profits, government agency, and universities. Um, some of them are University of Texas at Arlington, Dallas County Community College District, United Way, Services of Hope, the City of Dallas, the Department of Housing of the federal government, Grace After Fire, just to mention a few. On this webinar, we'll be talking about decisions and important things to know about when you're looking for a place to rent. Um, Key rental decisions, identifying the goals, planning and saving, and the tools. As I said before, United Way is one of our um, partners. We are funded by the agency, and Transformance joins a network for 43 programs focused on providing a pathway out of poverty. Also, the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas 10-year goal is to move 250,000 people out of poverty through financial stability programs, including financial coaching, job training, and job placement. Helping individuals and families reach their goal, financial stability, is what Transformers does. To give you an example of one of our clients, for privacy purpose, we changed his name to Ben. He came to Transformers several years ago after experiencing a really bad and expensive divorce, living out of his car and paying for all of his expenses with his credit cards. With the help of Transformance budgeting classes, he was able to learn how to live within a budget. Uh, Through our debt management plan, he was able to pay off all his creditors in a reasonable and a responsible fashion. After learning how to do a budget and clearing up all his credit issues, he was able to run several successful companies and is a leading pillar of our community, having served at the pleasure of two United States presidents. For our topic today, key rental decisions. Families have many financial decisions, including rent. It is very important that if you're planning to rent a place with your family, you discuss it with your spouse. Couples that consider decisions are setting themselves up for success. In this presentation, we will discuss some of the major rent-related issues that face today's families. The decisions about your rental, things that you need to consider before renting a house or an apartment. And the very first question is, what do you want to rent? Either an apartment or a house. When you're making that decision, you need to ask yourself also, how big do you want the house or the apartment? 2 rooms, 2 bathrooms, 3 rooms, 2.5 bathrooms, depending what it is you need, and you have to consider your budget on this particular manner. What what do you want in a neighborhood? That's also a very important way. Most of us, we just want to live in a quiet and peaceful neighborhood without any crime problems. You need to consider and you need to ask how much security deposit is required and what are you willing to pay. This is where the budget comes in. You don't want to rent a place where it takes you out of your budget and you don't have enough money at the end of the month. And you also need to consider what school districts do you want to be near. You need to do some research on the different school districts so you know in which one you want your kids to attend. To be considered when shopping for a place to call home, there's a selection criteria. You need to checking all the rental properties. You need to do the application process, then the lease. You need to take into account all the moving costs. You need to take into account the location, the safety of that location, and if you have pets, then you need to find out what are the pet rules for that house or for that apartment complex that you're moving. Now, about the rental insurance, there are three types of rental insurance, three protections offered. One of them is the coverage for personal possessions, the liability protection, and the additional living expenses. Yeah, in the next upcoming slides, I'll be talking about each one of them. Now, a good rule of thumb for insurance on personal possessions is that according to the Insurance Institute, renter's insurance covers you against losses from fire or smoke, lightning, vandalism, theft, explosion, windstorm, and certain types of water damage. There you see where you can find out that information. This is very important because as you see, not all natural disasters are covered under renter's insurance. So this is key for you to find out and to know before picking an insurance for the place that you're renting. Buy enough insurance to cover your possessions. Create a home inventory to assess the value. This is very important. If you want to cover all your personal belongings, it is key that you know what do you have and what actually needs to be insured. Now, for the personal property coverage, like I said, this is a coverage for all your stuff, for all your belongings. Like I said, you need to, most of the insurance policies do not cover either flood or earthquakes. So this is very important at the time that you choose an insurance. Make sure that it covers all the ones that I mentioned before. And if it covers these two, then you're great. A floater is an additional policy for specific expensive items. For example, diamonds, any kind of jewelry, something that is of really, something that's very valued to you. And we have to make a note here that, that the replacement cost coverage is more expensive, but better coverage than the actual cash value coverage. Now, moving on to liability coverage. This covers you against lawsuits for bodily injury and personal property damage against you or your family. Medical payment coverage allows medical bills to be submitted directly. On this particular case, let us use the example. If someone comes to your apartment or to your house and for whatever reason slips, falls, let's say breaks a leg, an ankle, a wrist, then that person can sue you. But with the liability coverage, even though it is not your house you're renting or your apartment, but that covers you in case of that happens. This is a classic example for bodily injury in case of when you're renting. Finally, like I said, we have the additional living expense coverage. Insurance, this insurance if your house is destroyed by an insured disaster and you incur additional costs while finding alternative living arrangement. So the additional living expense coverage covers you, like I said before, in case of fire or smoke, lightning, vandalism, theft, explosion, windstorm, and certain types of water damage. So this will be covered, but it will also cover you the additional costs that you may have when you are looking for another place to live while the previous place is being restored. Now that you pick a place and you make sure that it's in a safe neighborhood, you make sure that the apartment or the house that you're renting has the commodities that you want, 2 or 3 rooms, 1 or 2 bathrooms. So now that you got that figured out, then it comes the application process. So this is the information that most of the landlords or homeowners request at the time of renting. They're going to ask about personal information. They're going to ask for verifiable source of income. This could be the most recent pay stubs that you may have, probably at least 2 or 3. They will ask for so they can see a continuous pattern that you are getting paid and that they have the security that you will be paying to them. And most of them, they also have 2 forms of government issue identifications: social security card, driver's license, the official state ID, your passport, or birth certificate. They're going to need the names of all the occupants and the vehicle or vehicle's identification. So let's say you're in an apartment complex, so they're usually going to ask the name of all the persons that are going to be living there so they can keep track of it. And they're going to ask for the vehicle's identification so they know and they can keep a watch on your vehicle. And also they will provide emergency contact information in case something bad happens or in case that you're not paying and they do not find you, they can have a person to rely. Now that you know all about the application process, now you go to the place. It's very important that you walk through the apartment with the manager to ensure that you're not responsible for the damage that did not occur. This is very important. You need to go and see every inch of the place you want to rent. So if you see something, you point it out to the person that is renting, that you can figure that out and that manager can resolve that problem and you won't be charged for it. You need to make sure that you sign and date it, so that's your evidence that the manager of the apartment complex saw that damage and is making sure that you are not responsible. Make a list of all you bring to the apartment. This will take out all the problems when you move out, so you have an idea of what you brought originally. And make sure that and if you have a roommate, let's say there's not a family, you're renting an apartment with someone else, a friend or some other person, to make sure that both of you sign it and date it so you know which thing belongs to you and which belongs to your roommate. Now, the laws that protect you. There's a different kind of law that the federal government has passed throughout the years that will help you when you're choosing a place to live. That will be the Fair Housing Act of 1988, the Americans with Disability Act of 1990, the tenant's right to health and safety, and right to security. The Fair Housing Act of 1988, says that it's unlawful to discriminate in any aspect of selling and renting housing or to deny a dwelling to a buyer or renter because of the disability of that individual, an individual associated with the buyer or renter, or an individual who intends to live in the residence. You can see the website so you can look for more information about the Fair Housing Act. Also, you got the Americans with Disability Act of 1990. This one says the primary concerns public space, not private housing. Act applies to apartment rental office as rental office is open to the public. Title II of this act applies to all programs and services made available by public entity. For example, college dorms. And there's the link so you can have more information on it. Now, this next slide talks about the courtesy for owners, things that the owners really appreciate when you're renting, and this helps you get a better deal if you're going to renew your rental or if you need to, or if you're looking for someone else and that previous owner can step up for you and do a recommendation. Pay rent on time and in full, avoid late fees, take care of the property as if the property was yours, be considerate of other tenants, be mindful of noise levels, trash, visitors, any kind of activity that you may have in your apartment or in your house. or and provide written notice of any request or announcement. We all have busy schedules, so it is good to have every notice written down so that when you present it to the owner, they can have a copy and you can have a copy of it. Okay. Things to consider before moving in. This is basically, you need to, when you walk in and you're seeing the apartment or the house, you need to make sure that there are no repairs to be done, that the smoke detectors are working, that is a very secure place, that the owner has to do all the pesticides application, no pest on the apartment or the house, and make sure that the lead-based paint. These all things to be considered before you actually sign the contract of the rent, so that the owner can take care of this before you move in. So making a written request. Secure a receipt with date when delivering your write-up. Wait a responsible amount of time, 1 to 2 weeks, except for dangerous situation, for the landlord to fix any problem that you may have. If you do not receive a response during this 1 or 2 week period, if it's not an emergency, then send a second letter telling the landlord what you intend to do. And if you do not receive any response after the second notice, contact the North Texas Legal Services and they can help you with this situation. It's very important that every time you're gonna do a written request, you have a copy for yourself. So in case the one that you sent gets lost, you have the copy. Now, when you're going to rent a place, this is the items that you need to focus on the house or the apartment before you move in. Be aware of sewage backup, no hot water, infestation of roaches, rats, or other pests, faulty wiring, leaky roof, no air conditioning or heat. You don't want to be very cold during the winter, or you don't want to be very hot during the summer. Anything that violates building health or fire codes. This particular issues, each single one of them is very important before you rent a place. You have to make sure that none of them are happening on the place that you want to rent. If the apartment that you want to rent has one of these, talk to the owner so that can be resolved before you move in, or you may want to consider looking for another place. When you decide to leave, it is very important that you read your contract, read your lease, so you can see what are the details about moving out and what do you need to do before moving out. And at least provide the landlord with 30 days of written notice uh, before you leave. Usually it's 30 days, maybe other places can be 45. We encourage you to read that part before you send the letter to the landlord that you're moving out. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about right now about setting new goals. Uh, the goal setting tool by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a vehicle to help you identify and clarify new goals as you encounter your new stage of life priorities, in this case, renting. And the following slides, we will look at the tool to give you the same way it looks like. We will provide a download. Now, setting new goals. You need, are you ready for the rest of life? Practically, you need to be ready for financially, for housing, transportation, estate planning, healthcare, and you need to also be prepared emotionally for whatever life brings you. Renting or buying a house or an apartment is not always easy. So it's preferable that you are ready for this, that you're sure that you're making the right step and the right decision. We recommend that you do a list of short-term and long-term hopes, wants, and dreams for you and your family. From this list, it is very important that you create a specific measurable, and time-bound goals. These type of goals, you know that a goal is specific, measurable, and time-bound when you can ask yourself, when you can answer yourself, how will I do it? How will I know if I'm successful? Or when will I be complete? These three questions, you have the answer for these three questions, then you are determined that this goal is specific, is measurable, and is time-bound. Create an action plan to accomplish your goals, and for any goal that requires money, determine how much needs to be set aside each week to accomplish this goal. So if you need to do a deposit for renting an apartment, so that obviously takes a certain amount of money. So you need to prepare yourself, prepare your budget, especially if you're working with tight, with a very tight budget. You need to prepare yourself for doing that deposit. You don't want to throw your budget out of rhythm, out of schedule. So since this requires money, you need to determine how much you need to be set aside each week, so you can have the enough money to do the deposit or pay the rent for the continuous month. Saving fundamentals from Schwab Center for Financial Research. For financial research, what do you save slash pay for first? This is prioritizing everything in your life. Maximize retirement savings, save for child's education, save for a home, pay down other debt, keep investing. You need to prioritize everything in your life. So you need to have your priorities straight so you can know and you can work with your budget. Max out your company retirement contribution to at least receive a full employer match. Pay down high interest rate debt. Don't let them accumulate. And build an emergency savings funds. You never know what could happen if you have that emergency savings fund. Then you can be covered for most of it or for some of the cost of that emergency if it's happened. Now, a good way to track your spending is, a good way to control your spending is to track them. We recommend for you to observe and document how you spend your money for a specific time period. This could be between 1 week to a month. Keep track of every expense you have during that time period. Analyze your spending. And you can use this information to decide either where you can where change needs to be made, where it can or should be made. This will help you identify where are you spending the most, and if you think that in this particular area you need to reduce the amount of money that you spend. By tracking all your expenses, this will be very helpful to do so. Another way to do it is a cash flow calendar. For example, here on this particular week, you can see the sources, the income that this person received, and the bills that this person had to pay. That person received $280 SNAP on Monday the 1st, and is going to receive a payment of $305 on Saturday the 6th. Now, during this week, that person needed to pay $180 on food, $60 on the phone bill. On Thursday, he needed to refill his car's tank, so that will be $30, and the car payment on the 6th of $180. Now, that person received a total income during the week of $585. And with the food, phone, gas, and car payment, all his payments add up to $450. Now, here it says that the week before this one, this client had this person had a $130 balance when he received his income and when he paid all his bill. At the end, he will have an ending balance of $265. This particular calendar is very useful when you can put on a calendar where are you getting paid and when are your bills due, so you can have an idea how much money you're gonna have left after you pay all your bills, and what amount of money you're gonna have by the time your next pay period comes around. All right, so thank you very much for attending Ready to Rent. My name is Xavier. I am very honored to be here with you. If you have any questions, you can visit our website, transformingsusa.org, or I encourage you to call us at 800-249-2227.